The next concept that divides collectivism from individualism has to do with the way that people are treated under the law. Individualists believe that no two people are exactly alike, and that each one is superior or inferior to others in a huge variety of ways, but that under the law, they should all be treated equally. Collectivists believe that the law should treat people unequally in order to bring about desirable changes in society. They view the world as tragically imperfect. They see poverty and suffering and injustice, and they conclude that something must be done to alter the forces that have produced these effects. They think of themselves as social engineers who have the wisdom to restructure society to a more humane and logical order. To do this, they must interfere in the affairs of men at all levels and redirect their activities according to the master plan. That means they must redistribute wealth and use the police power of the state to enforce prescribed behaviour. The consequence of this mindset can be seen everywhere in society today. Almost every country in the world has a tax system designed to treat people unequally depending on their income, their marital status, the number of children they have, their age, and even the type of investments they may have. The purpose of this arrangement is to redistribute wealth, which means to favour some classes over others. In some cases, there are bizarre loopholes written into the tax laws just to favour one corporation or one politically influential group. Other laws provide tax exemption and subsidies to favoured groups or corporations. Inequality is the sole purpose of these laws. In the realm of social relationships, there are laws to establish racial quotas, gender quotas, affirmative action initiatives, and to prohibit expressions of opinion that may be objectionable to some group or to the master planners. In all of these measures, there is an unequal application of the law based on what group or class you happen to be in or on what opinion you hold. We are told that all of this is necessary to accomplish a desirable change in society, and yet, after more than 100 years of social engineering, there is not one place on the globe where collectivists can point with pride and show where their master plan has actually worked as they predicted. Let us use an example of a basketball league, where some of the teams were forced during the last season to play with one arm tied behind their backs, while others could play without constraint. Of course, neither individualists nor collectivists would consider this arrangement fair. Now suppose that someone proposed for the next several seasons, those teams whose players had been untied were now to play all of their games with one arm tied behind their backs, while those who had been tied up now had both arms free. Is the arrangement now fair? Before we answer, let's improve the analogy. Let's observe that there has been a complete turnover of players. All those who played in the first set of games have retired. The current players, therefore, are newcomers, none of whom were involved in the original practice. Let's ask again, is the arrangement now fair? It is important to identify one crucial premise in this example. It identifies the players as individuals, rather than members of a collective team. Let us use a more contemporary example of groups who, historically, have had the rules of the game biased against them, such as the indigenous peoples of Australia and Canada or the Native Americans of the United States. Their struggle has been against the racism and inequality that inhibits their opportunities. Both collectivists and individualists would agree that the rules of the game need to be changed so that they can play with both hands untied. But what would we say if collectivists went even further and changed the rules so that the ancestors of native people were guaranteed employment, given welfare payments, or even made exempt from paying taxes just because they belong to the group, regardless of how well off the individual may be? In their quest for equal rights, is the collectivist strategy for swapping negative inequality for positive inequality likely to be successful? The individualist believes that this path breeds further resentment as it continues the fostering of a society that only sees each other as members of groups, eternally different and forever struggling for preferential treatment under the law at the expense of others. There have been many books written about the collectivist utopia, but they have never materialized in the real world. Wherever collectivism has been applied, the results have always been more poverty than before, more suffering than before, and certainly more injustice than before. Individualism is based on the premise that all citizens should be equal under law, regardless of their race, religion, gender, or political opinion. No class should be given preferential treatment, regardless of the merit or popularity of its cause. To favour one class over another is not equality under law. In the final part of this series, we explore the proper role of government. We look at the difference between an individualist and a collectivist state, and where each government will take its society.